Ooh, 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 doggy. We could have named this rip Back to the Bank Run. The banks are still failing. We have
I think
positive
we
things
could
to talk
name
about.
every rip. Every rip this year, we could just name the bank runs continue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad. We'll get to it. Obviously, big topic this week. A lot going on. The banks are failing. But there's good things going on in Bitcoin. We gotta focus on the good. A lot of bad going on. There's also a lot of good going on. We're gonna bring you both today in this rip.
Well, I mean, I think that's good framing, Marty, because I think it's important. It's important that first of all that we be aware of everything that's going on around us, right? And we try and help the freaks be aware week in and week out with Rabbit Hole Recap. Um, and as a result, I think both of us have been accused of being doomers many times. But I think another key facet of Rabbit Hole Recap is focusing on actionable change, things that we can actually control, things that can actually, bring hope and optimism to the world. And on that note, the reason we titled this episode $10 million for open source developers and open source projects is because I'm very proud and grateful to announce that Jack Dorsey's foundation, Start Small, has contributed $10 million to OpenSats, the nonprofit foundation that I co founded with Ben Price 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. We're 100% pass through. We don't take a cut of any donations like a lot of nonprofits do. And as a result, we've been very much bootstrapped. Most of our operations budget has, been cobbled together because we can't take any percentage out of our donations by design. So Jack was kind enough to contribute $10 million. 5 million of that is going to be dedicated to Noster projects. So we have basically we're setting up a Noster fund. So if people want to donate, by the way, you can go to opensats.org. All the information's there. You can donate to this Noster general fund is where you're going to be able to donate, and any money that goes there will be earmarked for Noster projects. We're going to have a separate subcommittee for the Noster projects. So we're setting up that subcommittee now with people that are neck deep in the Nostr ecosystem. Then we also have the remainder of that $10 million. A small portion is going into our operations fund per Jack's request to fund our operations. We're going to bring in Gigi full time
Let's go.
to run it, which I'm very excited about. The dude's an absolute fucking legend. And he's already taken massive ownership and responsibility over it, which is absolutely wonderful to see. I just love that dude. He's a brother. And then Harper will be operating underneath him. Harper has been pivotal in OpenSats. Many people know Harper from his work doing programming at Bitcoin Magazine. He has also been helping out with operations at OpenSats for very little money. And I'm extremely appreciative of him. He's amazing. So he will be helping Gigi out on the operations side. The OpenSats board is comprised of 9 Bitcoiners. If people have been paying attention, we used to have the full board is listed on the website. We used to have Catan and Udi on the board. They have both since stepped down. Udi due to cultural differences, to say the least, and Catan because we got into a fight about mempools. No, Catan just had life priorities to deal with. So replacing them is MVK and Gigi are going to be on the 9-person board. And then, a little bit, slightly less than 5 million will go into the general fund, which gets granted out to different projects that apply on the website opensats.org/apply. So the general fund is Bitcoin and other free and open source projects, contributors to those projects. We want to do like core dev, funding. We want to do funding of all these different open source projects. So you can apply at opensats.org/apply. And just a reminder, the 9-person board, we take no money. We've been working tirelessly at OpenSats for years now, and we get paid nothing for it. But what we do get paid in is the wonderful, warm, fuzzy feeling of hopefully changing the world into a better place on the back of free and open source software and the contributors that make it possible. Because most of these contributors donate their time, their energy, their efforts for free, and are oftentimes not compensated for it. But free and open source software is what makes this movement possible. It's inherently viral in nature. It's not controlled by any individual company or entity. It can be built on top of, it can be modified, it can be improved, it can be distributed in all sorts of ways. And I strictly just would not have hope in this world, really, if it wasn't for free and open source software. Freedom Tech is what's going to make this world a better place for ourselves, our children, our grandchildren. And I'm just proud to do my small part to try and make that a reality.
Well, thank you, sir. Number 1. Number 2, you should be proud. Number 3, thank you, Jack Dorsey. And number 4, I don't know why I'm listing numbers, but this is, I think the existence of OpenSats is extremely important. It actually harkens back to the conversation I had with Steve Barber last week, where, I mean, it's incredible. You have companies like NiDig and Square via Spiral or Block, via Spiral, and other entities, corporate entities, contributing to open source development, supporting developers. But Steve brought up an interesting point of, even if these companies are funding developers, there is that weird thing where the developers may not want to bite the hand that feeds them. And the fact that OpenSats exists as no strings attached, really doesn't have any motives or agendas to push particular things, just want to support developers building in the space, I think is a great addition to the mix of open source development contributions that we've seen to date. So shout out to you, Ben, who's actually right outside this wall right now, everybody else at OpenSats. I know you guys have been working hard. I can attest to the fact that they work very hard and tirelessly. I think I can recall at least 3 board calls that I've been in the room where Matt's on them, working hard. They're not just dicking around. They're doing hard work. And it's going to be good for Bitcoin at the end of the day. So shout out to you. Shout out to Ben, everybody else at OpenSats. Shout out to GG. Congrats on the new gig. I think that's going to help you guys level up significantly. We're going to do this. Matt, you're a perfect example of, if not me, then who? Get out there and do it. We were sitting in my fucking studio apartment in Brooklyn 4 years ago with 2 mics in our hand. Look at you now.
We're going to win, Marty. We're going to win.
We are. And it could be, and the reason I bring that up is because any of you freaks listening, it could be you. Matt and I were just a couple Bitcoiners on Twitter 5-6 years ago. Started this podcast. Started OpenSats. 1031. Mining. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. It's the beauty of open source. If you want to contribute, you can. In many different ways. I don't think Matt and I can write a lick of code, but we do the best we can to contribute in other ways. You can't code. I was going out on a limb saying that. I don't know if you can code or not.
We just try our best. We try our best to help where we can help. Yeah, no, it's we're gonna win. Oh, also with OpenSats, by the way, you can donate with credit card. I know I'm announcing a $10 million donation, so and it's a bear market and a recession, so you don't have to donate. I don't think I'm asking you to donate, but you can donate via credit card if you don't want to donate with Bitcoin. You can get a tax deduction when you do donate because we're a 501c3, which, by the way, was a complete pain in the ass to set up. And huge shout out to Ben Price for making that happen. I told him it was never going to happen, and he was like, "It's going to happen, man. It's going to happen. We're going to get it." But we hold all of our funds in Bitcoin. An eagle-eyed freak noticed on Twitter that on the website it said Silvergate is a partner. They are obviously no longer a partner, but we did not get rugged. because we hold all of our funds in Bitcoin and all grants are paid out in Bitcoin. So while the general fund is not limited to Bitcoin projects, it's just the mandate is free and open source contributors, and supporting free and open source contributors. So like we're working with Tor to support Tor as well. But any contributors that want to receive a grant from us do have to accept Bitcoin. That is our one requirement. And it's just these bank runs, I think, were a perfect example of, a lot of people when we first launched thought maybe, it was reckless that they just hold all their donations in Bitcoin. But I think it's reckless not to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good time to stack Bitcoin too. You guys timed this $10 million funding pretty well, if you ask me. Could balloon into 20 million, 40 million, who knows?
I mean, there was no treasury, like it was just smash bought into Bitcoin. So
thank you for supporting the price.
We'll see.
That
is our mandate. As soon as we receive dollars, it gets converted into Bitcoin. There's no trading strategy. There's no like dollar cost averaging in. It just gets converted into Bitcoin. I do want to address the elephant in the room, which
MVK's
is
on the board
in the comments saying
you're
MVK's
a hypocrite.
On the board,
you're a hypocrite.
All this bullshit. I will say that he is going to be repenting for his views on certain things by having to dedicate hours of his time going through grant proposals for no money. So cheers to him for that.
You gotta get your repentance, NBK. Speaking of that.
And it's a 9-person board for a reason. None of us have really unilateral control by any means.
That's a big board.
And people have given me shit about that too, a 9-person board, but I've seen how corrupted people can get in the space, and it's important that, power is distributed.
Do you need unanimous votes from the board or majority?
No unanimous votes. No, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You need a super majority to kick out a board member, and you need a simple majority for the grants.
All right. Good to know.
And all funds are held in multi-sig.
Let's go. All right. As we just heard, the OpenSats team is contributing to supporting the Bitcoin price. And according to Clark's dashboard, the current price of Bitcoin is 28,840 cuck-bucks. One cuck-buck is going to get you 3,467 sats. We are currently at block height 788,280. We had a difficulty adjustment earlier today. That was a negative difficulty adjustment, which is surprising considering what's been going on in the fee market. I'm sure we'll touch on that. If you've been mining on Brains pool, and any pool, but I mine on Brains and get the updates on their blocks. They've had at least 3 blocks with more than 1 Bitcoin in fees today alone. So I'm sure we'll discuss that as well. We are currently 1,992 blocks away from the next adjustment. Right now, estimated to be on May 18th. So that's exactly 2 weeks from today. Not good data because we're only 24 blocks from the difficulty adjustment that was earlier today. Right now, the estimated change is 0.5% upward adjustment. Blocks been coming in at 9 minutes, 59 seconds on average. Clark's mempool has 111,566 transactions in it. If you want to get your transaction in the next block, according to Clark's dashboard, you're going to need 130 sats per VVite, and according to mempool.space, you're going to need 129. So there's a little discrepancy there. But right around the same ballpark, around 130 sats per byte. There are currently 7,000. Where is it? 7,120.
Did you see Finch's upgrade? We need to have Clark. We need a section that says how many mempool related bets are currently outstanding.
For the freaks that were listening last week, we did not do another bet. But I would.
Are we going to do one? You want to do one?
Yeah, I mean, I like free money.
I'm giving you the advantage because we're difficulty adjusted down, and mempools have cleared a little bit.
Where are they at right now?
So
110
what
bucks.
is it? Just 100,000 sats?
You owe me 100,000 sats right now.
So you just want to double or nothing it?
Yeah.
Did you see me lose my cool on Twitter the other day? I feel it in my bones. Mempools will never
Yeah,
clear
yeah.
again. All
Caps
caps.
Odell came out for half a tweet. I saw that.
I have a bet with Finch for a round of golf, and I have a bet with Bitcoin Q&A. Love that dude for 50,000 sats.
Double or nothing. What are the terms
I'm
of this
just
one?
if you freaks haven't realized, this is basically transaction fee insurance on my side. This is a beautiful transaction fee insurance market that is opening up live on RHR.
What are the terms of this double or nothing bet? That's what I want to know.
Should we do the same terms as last time?
No, I'm not doing clear twice. I want to do clear once. I want the advantage in this one.
Wow, someone's expecting mempools to be full for a while.
No.
Okay, we can do it once. I don't care. What?
Once between now and when?
I mean, your lack of conviction is obvious.
No. I just want better odds.
By end of year.
End of year. I like that. End of year.
How about the day before Christmas? Christmas Eve.
Also known as Christmas Eve. Why pick an arbitrary date like that? I think end of year is
because people aren't going to transact on Christmas. So if I get fucking rugged on Christmas, I want a little bit of a hedge.
Well, I want a great Christmas present, so this is where we're in a bit of disagreement here.
You're not going to give me Christmas Eve? I'm giving you great terms.
Finch is saying January 1st, 2024 at 0000.
That's me and his bet. That's me and his bet.
All right, I'll just hop on that one.
No, I want Christmas Eve. The day before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Eve.
Fuck no. All right, we'll do Christmas Eve.
August 31st.
We'll do Christmas Eve because my the last bet was August 1st because I bet summer doldrums would clear out the mempool. We didn't even need summer doldrums. We just need a temporary lull in ordinals.
Yeah,
a lot of people.
I'll probably lose my money.
A lot of people hopping down my throat for a throwaway tweet that was somewhat tongue in cheek, but
with throwaway tweet.
It was like the ordinals fad came and went pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, I mean, it spiked right after you said that.
Did it spike though? Like, or was it like BRC20? And I think that's connected to ordinals, but
they're like inscribing text to make
like
tokens.
JSON. It's like JSON snippets or something like that.
Yeah, I have no idea. Bitcoin in the comments is speculating that I'm secretly the ordinal spammer. I'm definitely not. Because if I was, mempools would never clear. I would never let a gap happen.
It seems pretty expensive.
Just think about it.
I don't know. If you look at it too, there's a lot of...
It's very expensive. That's the whole fucking point. The whole point is that transaction fees are supposed to price out spam. Like, we're not supposed to be deciding what transactions are happening on the network. That's why transaction fees exist.
Yeah, it does spam.
Block space is scarce. Spam does not exist.
Block space is less scarce than it was in like 2017.
Exactly. That's part of my thesis, is that we've extended the period where mempools are still clearing, but at some point, we're going to hit a point where mempools will never clear again.
Well,
like that point will happen at some time.
No, because
I don't know when it's going to happen, but it will happen at some time, and I think it's closer than people realize.
No, I don't think so. Especially as we get closer to the commodification of ASICs and hash rate. There's a topic on the list that maybe we'll dive into it now to tie it into this conversation.
Wait, so Marty, you think mempools will always clear?
Yes, because especially if fees are so high, people will turn on their ASICs, hash rate will rise, blocks will come in faster, they'll clear eventually, level out, fees will go down, hash rate will turn up, fees will build up, blocks will build up. I think it's going to ebb and flow.
But I mean, you're assuming very little adoption of Bitcoin.
No, I'm just assuming that dispatchable hash rate will always outgrow adoption. And then
I think there's going to be such a long line to get into Bitcoin blocks after hyper Bitcoinization.
yeah, but that's the
I
beauty
think
of
it's
the
going to be
whole.
so obvious after
That's
the
the beauty of
fact.
the whole
It
incentive
seems so
mechanism.
obvious.
Is that the fees are going to be so valuable. So if you're assuming that, it's going to be backup.
Well, the
Fees
fees
are going to go up.
they only get
Why is there
valuable if you
if
have
the
a
price goes
backlog.
up? Well, yeah. And why do you have a backlog? 'Cause assume the price is going up, so there's more demand for Bitcoin. So it's more profitable to mine, so more people plug in. It's ebbs and flows.
No,
We'll see. We'll see.
disagree. I think that's a very bearish take.
No, it's not. I think it's just descriptive of the dynamics of the network at play.
I think you can only clear so much of the backlog in a single difficulty adjustment period. Because if so, your theory is that like there's a massive backlog, so a bunch of hash comes on essentially just for a single difficulty period. But then
No,
that
miners are.
difficulty period goes by really quickly because the more miners that join in a difficulty period, the shorter the difficulty period is. Like it's the same amount of time in blocks, but the blocks come quicker. So the difficulty period goes by quicker.
I don't know, but just
Like there's
looking
going
at
to be a point where the backlog is just non-clearable.
put this on. Then if
Well,
you want
anyway,
to
I'm glad
if
we're
you really
talking
want to
about
get in the
important
technical,
topics.
if you want to get like the technicals, like at some point, mempools will start dropping certain transactions, and so you have that natural.
Nah, but they just get rebroadcast.
Go to view more on that on the right chart, the hash rate difficulty chart.
There's no miners. There's no miner. I mean, maybe there are miners. I'm not going to speak
Well, there's nuance to this.
absolutely here,
There's dumb
but there
miners,
won't be miners. There's dumb miners. Is that what you said?
and they're typically the new miners who see price go up,
No,
fees go up, revenue go up, and they buy
no, that's not my
aping in.
point. The pool operators that are running these nodes are not running default. I mean, I doubt the smart ones are running default mempool size. Like they probably have fucking lots of RAM and they're holding a very large mempool so that they can keep, so they're not dropping transactions.
We'll see. All right, bets on Christmas Eve.
Well, you agree that we're never going to raise the block size again, right? Like that's
I
never
agree
going
with
to
that.
fucking happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there will be an
Okay.
ebb
Well,
and
anyway,
flow,
the
though.
bet's on.
There'll
Clark,
be an ebb and flow.
you need to start tracking the bets.
Logan hit back twice, and then I'm on the wrong website. Insights.brains.com. Go to insight. I'll put it in here. Go down, then go to hash rate, hash value, transaction fees. Then open it up to 3 years. Actually, go longer, go like 5 years. If we look at like fees as a percentage of the overall reward historically, we're still well below the highs of 2017, which aren't even on this chart because go all, you'll see 2017.
Number go up.
Yeah. As a percentage,
Yeah.
it's up.
But that was before he raised the block size.
Yeah, and then so then we're anchoring to 2020.
I mean, it's technically after, but like we didn't have SegWit transactions. Really, it took a while.
Yeah, and there was a spam attack on the network back then too. So that's the other thing with the
thing as spam, but yes, there was a spam attack.
A dust attack, excuse me, to be more technically apt, or technically.
I mean, someone was
specific.
literally just trying to raise fees.
Yeah, But that's the thing, going back to like BRC20, who knows what it is, but apparently that's like one of the weird things with this. It's somewhat like a dust attack, where a lot of the UTXOs are 546 sat or 64. It's 546 for 5. I think it might be 64. 564 sats, which is the minimum size of a UTXO that you can have. So it looks like they're trying to spend the least amount of sats to get these JSON snippets included in blocks. That creates a problem because then how do you consolidate those UTXOs in the future, especially if the fee market's high?
Sounds like mempools will never clear again.
It's another technical detail you freaks should be aware of. There is a lower limit. Excuse me. There's a floor on the amount of sats you can put in UTXO. It's like 546 sats. 64. 64.
I will just say that it's way above my pay grade. But Andrew Polstra says we can't easily block these kind of transactions.
No, because then you'll have like a chain split because people will be filtering and all that shit.
And he said transaction fees should just weed them out. And I will just say that so then how you feel about it is moot because they can't be blocked. So how you feel about it is moot. And so then at that point, like if you want to bet against humans being degens, like be my guest. But my assumption is that humans will always be degens. And that of course, shitcoiners are going to want to use the Bitcoin chain. The Bitcoin chain is the most censorship-resistant, immutable chain in human existence. Like this thing's going to outlast all of us. Like they want to use it for the same reason we want to use it.
Agree. For all the ordinals haters or lovers out there who view me as a hater, I'm more indifferent. That tweet was a throwaway tweet. It was actually an inside joke with the RHR crew because mempool's cleared. And I was able to rub it in Matt's face.
Marty, for this bet, it needs to be 2 blocks in a row that are not full.
How about 2?
Otherwise, it gets confusing. Like, what is
2 out of 10?
Clear?
2 out of 10.
Like, we had like the last bet. It was like, what does Wiz say? It was like Wiz was the oracle. It's like, did it clear? Or the one before that. It was like some iffy period. It was like there was still a backlog, but like the block was empty. It was weird. Yeah. I don't really care. It's a fun bet. I like gambling.
I can tell. Well,
but you see what I'm saying about transaction fee insurance? Like, I wonder if there's going to be transaction fee insurance markets.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been talked about
because I'm going to be a Bitcoin transactor for the rest of my life. I'm going to have to pay transaction fees. So if mempools don't clear again, I would like some kind of payout.
Like to buy what would it be?
To compensate my transaction fees.
You'd like to buy a put on future transaction fees. So you could sell.
Right. I want to like lock in my transaction fee prices for the next 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, well, this is when you talk about the evolution of hash rate derivatives, the fee derivatives are sort of on that timeline or that quote unquote roadmap. Not that there is a roadmap, but people believe the order of operations will be some sort of hash rate derivative that gets a lot of volume and a lot of liquidity. And then from there, you'll have exchanges wanting to hedge out fee risk because they're arguably the largest actors on the chain. And so fee derivatives markets will materialize. But if you talk to Parker Lewis, he thinks we're getting put in the cart way in front of the horse. We need the price derivatives to develop a lot more liquidity before we move on to those hash rate and fee derivatives eventually in the future. We're getting into the weeds.
Like I said, degen's going to degen.
It's true. Speaking about degens, looks like Bhutan, Kingdom of Bhutan, up in the Himalayas. We talked about them last week. Did we talk about them last week, or that happened
This
after
is
the
not
show?
degen behavior. This is responsible treasury management by a sovereign nation.
I agree. I mean, degen just because of the size of the investment they're making now obviously became apparent last week. Actually, a couple weeks ago, that Bhutan Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is run by
We talked about that.
Druck Investment, or what is it? Druck Holding and Investments, which is the
We
investment
didn't
arm.
talk about them admitting it.
Yes, because they admitted it last Friday, and so it became apparent that the Sovereign Wealth Fund of the Kingdom of Bhutan was allocated to crypto generally because they got swept up in the BlockFi and Celsius bankruptcy proceedings, and so they're a creditor of BlockFi and Celsius, and since those bankruptcy proceedings are public, it outed them. And then over the weekend, I believe it was Saturday, Druck Holdings and Investments came out and admitted, yes, we're allocated to Bitcoin and crypto. We did have exposure to BlockFi and Celsius, but we also have a pretty considerable mining operation. So it seems that in 2020, when the price of Bitcoin was around $5,000, they allocated $124 million from their fund to mining infrastructure and plugged.
This is like ideal to get into mining.
Yeah, they're very good allocators. The perfect time to get into mining, like right around the last halving. They're leveraging excess hydroelectricity capacity at their hydro dams throughout the country. And it was reading the Bhutanese, which is the local newspaper up in Bhutan. They did an article on it, walking through the talking points from Druck, and it seems like they're pretty sophisticated. They understand demand response and not wanting to take electricity away from Bhutanese citizens when hydro capacity is lower than it is in other parts of the year. So they do some demand response there, and they're mining Bitcoin, selling what they need to sell to cover their ongoing OPEX, and then holding the rest. So they've been accumulating sats.
Besides what they put in BlockFi and Celsius.
But they mentioned in that article, too, that they did not commingle the mining revenues they were separate investments. So they're not. It's not like they're mining.
It's all
Bitcoin.
the same bucket, Marty.
Yeah.
It's all the same bucket.
Yeah.
Also, Bhutan is one of the only countries in the world with a Ministry of Happiness.
I read that in the article too.
Of their citizens.
Yeah. And I mean, so I wrote about it on Monday, but it really validates a lot of what Bitcoiners have been saying for quite some time now, which is that hyper-Bitcoinization will start at the edges. Smaller countries that are comparatively disadvantaged to larger countries like the U.S. due to the privilege that the reserve currency gives the United States, and similarly the size of the economy of Europe gives them, and China and others. That the theory has been that smaller countries that are looking to leapfrog themselves onto the international stage, or just get themselves in a better economic situation, will adopt Bitcoin first and get into it. Another part of the theory was they'll do it on the down low. It seems that Bhutan hit both those boxes. We probably would not be talking about them if BlockFi and Celsius did not go bankrupt and they were sort of forced into the open with those bankruptcy proceedings. So now they're out and proud. They're out, and this week they announced, that's why they're on the list again, that they are going to be investing $500 million in, I believe, a 200 megawatt build out.
No, so what they did was, this is interesting. So they got doxxed, essentially, right? This is part of the risk that we talk about for individuals. If you use like a Celsius or a BlockFi, something that's KYC, that information can leak. In bankruptcy proceedings, it's very obvious the leaks, it gets released. So they leaned into it, right? They said, nope, we've been allocated for a long time. We've been mining. We're very sophisticated. And then they leaned into it even further, and they announced this mining fund, which they're not paying for in full. Like they're accepting investment. No, but it's a $500 million fund. Like they're accepting foreign investment to expand their mining operation. They're like, if we're exposed anyway, we might as well take other people's money and make money on both sides. That was my reading of it.
Yes. now that I recall, and I'm reading the press release, that is exactly what's happening. They teamed up with BitDeer, so that's Jihan Wu's and a sub company of Bitmain.
It's not a sub company.
It used
he
to
got
be. I
like
think
pushed
they
out.
separated
of
it
Bitmain.
after he got pushed out.
All he got was BitDeer. Yeah, all he got was BitDeer, and then they went public.
Yeah, and so BitDeer is building out the infrastructure, and obviously Jihan, whether you like him or not, very competent mining operator.
Don't like him.
Not the best trader, but he understands mining very intuitively, probably better than many people on the planet, most people on the planet. So they partnered up. They've got this $500 million fund, so they're going to deploy into it. And there was one thing in here. I don't know if it was here or some other disclosure. Let me find it. It's in a group chat I was in earlier today, but really sophisticated. They're moving fast.
For context for the new Bitcoiners, Jihan was leading Bitmain when he made a big Bitcoin Cash push and essentially attacked the Bitcoin network trying to accomplish his goals, and he failed. And then they had like basically monopoly power over Bitcoin mining, and they had super connections with all the Chinese mining firms and different mining pools. At one point, he at least indirectly had control of over 50% of the hash. And he never had the balls to switch it all over to Bitcoin Cash because he's afraid to kill his golden goose. And that's the Bitcoin game theory at work right there.
Yeah. And another thing we should mention,
now he has BitDeer.
When he was in control of Bitmain, they had a firmware backdoor called AmpLead that gave Bitmain the ability to brick machines remotely. That was fixed. I believe that was.
And they also had their secret ASIC boost that apparently got bricked by the SegWit soft fork.
Yeah. Now we all have ASIC.
They were playing all different. Yeah, they were all. If everyone has ASIC boost, no one has ASIC boost. But they played a lot of shenanigan games, and he was king of the castle, and he fucked it all up because he got greedy.
Yeah, I wrote a newsletter about it years ago, but I think Jihan will be remembered as the Icarus of the early Bitcoin days. Flew a little too close to the sun. His wings melted.
Him and Roger.
Yeah. But hey, maybe this is a redemption arc for him. BitDeer just building out reliable infrastructure for sovereign nations. Here's what I wanted to mention. We expect to generate 100 megawatts out of the 550. So this fund will produce 550 megawatts of power that will electrify the miners. Where the construction of mining data centers is expected to begin in the second quarter of 2023 and complete in the third quarter of 2023. So we're already in Q2. And they expect to have 100 megawatts built out by Q3, which is pretty quick for that size of an operation. So it seems, again, the Kingdom of Bhutan.
They got that nice centralized. They also have that nice like centralized government, greasing the wheels and making everything go super efficient, right?
Yeah.
But this is a perfect example. So what are they doing? They are essentially taking foreign investment, making money off of that foreign investment.
They're speculative attacking.
Basically, these foreign investors are basically building out their energy infrastructure for them.
I think it's already built
for
out.
A small nation.
I don't know if they're building new hydro facilities. I think they just have a shit ton of excess capacity that can be soaked up by mining. I could be wrong though.
Fair enough. I thought at least some new infrastructure had to be put in.
DHI exists the betterment of the lives of Bhutanese people today and for generations. File a partnership with BitDeer to launch a carbon-free. God, don't like that marketing, but whatever. Digital asset mining data center.
Well, they want that money.
An investment in more connected sustainable capital raise will be channeled toward greenfield operations in Bhutan, encompassing construction of data centers and acquisition of cutting-edge technology. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're building out more capacity.
Marty, I like to think that the Bhutanese deal makers over there are just in a room. They're like laughing while they write carbon free on it. They're like, white man's going to fall for this.
Definitely are. Larry's going to give us all of his money. This initiative includes investments in strategic areas such as renewable energy assets that include hydropower, green ammonia. I'm not sure how that's going to end hydrogen fuel economy. That's a bit of LARPing. Emerging technologies such as blockchain, artificial intelligence, machine learning systems, carbon credit platforms, and the metaverse. Wow, they hit them all. They hit them all in that PR.
Yeah, they have a great fundraising team.
If the Bhutanese sovereign wealth fund had a stock ticker, it'd be taking off today. But no, going back to the broader conversation of like hyper Bitcoinization and the theory that Bitcoiners have been opining on for, or not opining on, but putting out there for the better part of a decade now, probably longer than a decade, is that smaller countries are highly incentivized to get into Bitcoin earlier, accumulate a large portion of Bitcoin, and then benefit massively as it goes through its monetization process. And it seems like that's exactly what Bhutan has recognized and began to implement with their strategy via their sovereign wealth fund, which raises the question, are there any other sovereign nations out there that didn't get caught up in BlockFi and Celsius that are doing the same thing?
Especially, I mean, the sanctioned countries can't use BlockFi, so they got protected essentially because BlockFi was an American company, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if like FTX was also blocking people. Celsius probably wasn't following sanctions rules.
Yeah, they were.
Just judging by Mashinsky. But yeah, I mean, that goes with the thesis is that a lot of these countries, it benefits them to do it secretly.
Yeah,
right. You don't want people to know you're accumulating.
Yeah, because if you tip the cards like, hey, yeah, I'm accumulating Bitcoin, that drives the thought in others' mind, like, oh, should I be accumulating Bitcoin? Maybe I should be. And then they get in, raise the hash rate, raise the price, and you don't get as much Bitcoin at the end of the day. So these smaller nations are highly incentivized to do it under the radar. And so this Bhutan gets added to
even
the list.
The big nations are. Yeah. Right. I mean, you speculated on Russia, and you still haven't given us any sources. Source.
Yes, I did. I gave the sources last week. The ASIC brokers.
I just like Source Eagle. Source Eagles is so good.
Source.
Russia is definitely mining Bitcoin. We've been saying this.
I mean, that's public. So it's Venezuela, Russia.
The question is how much?
Venezuela, Russia, El Salvador, Iran, now Bhutan.
North Korea
probably, yeah. I mean, it's speculation, but I think with pretty high signal behind it.
I mean, they're definitely stealing Bitcoin. We know they're stealing Bitcoin from exchanges.
Yeah. So that's
they probably are also mining.
7 or 8 countries right there. It's a good mix. You get El Salvador, Bhutan.
China is probably secretly mining.
Yeah, I mean, 20% of the hash rate is still in China. I mean, the United States has Bitcoin on their balance sheet due to all the confiscations, but they sell it all like a bunch of idiots. That's another thing to bring up.
I've been trying to get the boys at Bitcoin Policy Institute to lobby for they don't lobby, but encourage a new law to pass that's that all seized Bitcoin must be burnt by U.S. law. They have to provably burn it, send it to one Bitcoin eater address or whatever. I like that as a rule.
I won't be mad.
Remove the incentive to seize Bitcoin. I'm very concerned if there's a strong incentive, and there is naturally a strong incentive for governments to seize their subjects' Bitcoin.
Yeah, for you freaks who forget or weren't aware of, I mean, they have, I believe, like 96,000 of Bitfinex's Bitcoin that were stolen from their exchange in 2016. That's like the big question looming there. Are they going to give it back to Bitfinex? It rightfully is their Bitcoin, but Matt and I would probably say that it's very unlikely that that's going to happen.
So I responded to Dylan. Yeah, they're not going to give it back. I responded to Dylan LeClaire yesterday on Twitter about mint the coin is back in the press. One of my favorite topics.
Yeah, mint the damn coin.
Mint the $1 trillion coin. And I said they should mint the coin and they should stack sats with it. And someone responded to me underneath and they were like, they don't even have to actually stack sats. If they just, based on the amount of Bitcoin they have currently seized, which is like in the 200,000 range, 200,000 Bitcoin or something, they could just pretend like they're going to buy it. They could release a press release and be like, we're going to start accumulating Bitcoin. And like the current Bitcoin that they have seized could probably wipe out the debt.
Easily.
Or like wipe out a significant portion of the debt.
Yeah. Because they got 96,000.
Interesting incentive.
96,000 from the Bitfinex, and then that dude loaded, how many did they get from him? Like 60,000 or something like that? Maybe even more.
Yeah.
So that's at least like 150,000 if those numbers are correct.
They keep selling it.
They do.
They need to burn it. Let's advocate for them to burn the Bitcoin. They should burn if they hold the Bitcoin, we got to make sure Elizabeth Warren knows that if they hold the Bitcoin, they're hurting the environment, and that she should be campaigning for them to burn all the Bitcoin. Otherwise, they're complicit.
Free freaks are unaware what the U.S. government has done historically with seize Bitcoin, going all the way back to the Silk Road. They used the U.S. Marshals as a vehicle to auction it off. So it was 2013, 2014 was the first auction, and Tim Draper.
Yeah, but they don't auction off cocaine when they seize cocaine.
Yeah, it's very
they're
weird.
Complicit.
They'd probably auction off.
They're giving legitimacy to Bitcoin. They should burn it. They should burn it like they burn their drugs.
Burning Bitcoin won't get you high, though. Actually,
it
is a different type of high. Yeah, it's a different type of high. Yeah, it's weird. It's a lot of Bitcoin.
Burn the coin. Mint the coin. Burn the coin. Two different coins.
Yeah. Should we stay on Bitcoin, or should we, now that you mentioned mint the coin, there's a lot of macro to talk about and banking system.
Well, my next topic, before we get to mint the coin, I put the list in an intentional order because Bhutan is fucking crushing it with their Bitcoin strategy. And the Biden administration essentially proposed a ban on Bitcoin mining in America because if you have a 30% tax on mining, you're essentially making every miner unprofitable in America, and they're all going to leave.
Yes. Very unfortunate to see. Not surprising, though. And with all that being said, from what I can tell, talking to people, I'd be interested to see what the Bitcoin policy guys think. This seems unlikely to pass. And even if it does, it's likely unconstitutional. So it'll get spun up to the Supreme Court rather quickly. But it is a signal from the Biden administration, which hates you and is completely aloof and asleep at the wheel, sometimes literally. They're not forward-looking. They don't understand Bitcoin. They're very reactionary. They may even have some incentive on the back end to prevent this because they don't want Bitcoin to succeed because this administration seems to want to very granularly control your life. And Bitcoin lessens their ability to actually exert control over you. Yeah, unfortunate to see. I mean, this was teased a few months ago.
Not surprising.
Teased a few months ago, and I guess officially the blog post came out.
You have to remember, this is, first of all, this will never pass. I don't think this will pass. The boys at Bitcoin Policy Institute this is one of their main focuses is proof of work, is actually mining and protecting proof of work in America. And then the second being self-custody, sovereign usage, using Bitcoin as a freedom tool, running your own node, using your own node, holding your own keys. That's their main focus, and that's why they're a breath of fresh air. But I will say once again, Bitcoin network unaffected. If a country decides to make bad policy, that sucks for the country's citizens. That sucks for me and Marty because we're Americans. But Bitcoin is unaffected, and ultimately it's going to hurt America significantly more than it could ever hurt Bitcoin. But this will most likely not pass. And it's a perfect example of election year bullshit or lead up to election bullshit, where we're going to see a bunch of different virtue signal politician laws, proposals, all this other shit just to rally up their base, right? It's just it's a nice thing to say oh, we're going after the crypto bros. We propose this 30% tax, vote for me.
Yeah, very interesting timing with all this too, with all the banks failing and Bitcoin being a lifeboat. And they're trying to kill the lifeboat, burn it, sink it.
Yeah, ban the lifeboats. Genius idea.
Yeah, very interesting strategy, Cotton.
The lifeboats didn't sink the Titanic.
Bold strategy,
they
Cotton.
Saved people.
Yes. Again, not surprising. Likely not going to pass. If it does pass, miraculously in some way, likely unconstitutional, and will be fought. Speaking of the Bitcoin policy guys, they had a great event in DC last week. I watched some of those presentations and panels. Really good stuff.
They crushed it.
Yeah.
They really crushed it.
Yeah. Shout out to you guys.
I'm proud of those guys.
Educating.
Specifically, shout out David, Grant, and Steven. You guys have been killing it.
Yeah. What else on this tip? Should we go to the banking crisis?
Yeah, now we can go to the banking crisis. It's pretty crazy, the dichotomy between the small country of Bhutan and the failing empire of America, and
Yeah.
how but like America has a lot to, like the American government, the corrupt elite have a lot to lose if
Yes.
freedom tech spreads, while Bhutan has like only can gain.
Everything to gain.
So like it is incentives being played out. But if they actually cared about their people, if the American government actually, it's a good litmus test. I think it's a good litmus test going forward of whether or not your country is free if they allow monetary competition, if they allow freedom to choose which money you want to use. If they don't allow that, it's not actually a free country. If Marty asks you, do we even live in a free country, and you don't have freedom of choice in terms of monetary competition, you don't. You just, period, you don't.
You don't. And I remember what I wanted to add there too, with your remarks of banning Bitcoin or disincentivizing the spread of Bitcoin in the United States. Again, it's only going to hurt United States citizens, and it's counterproductive if you actually want to hurt Bitcoin. It actually makes Bitcoin stronger. Bitcoin's anti-fragile. So all you're doing is distributing hash rate, distributing node infrastructure, all that stuff, incentivizing people to run nodes behind Tor in their basements and stuff like that. So if you're the U.S. government, the Biden administration, as we know, there are some friendlies in the government that do like Bitcoin, are putting forth a good effort to ensure that it is able to flourish here in the United States. But the current administration is not posturing that way. And you should take note if you're listening. I know you're listening, Sleepy Joe. I know you put RHR on when you go to bed at 5 p.m. on Thursday nights, and you listen to our sweet murmurings.
Join us in the comments. Join us in the live comments on YouTube, Joe.
Yeah, I want to see POTUS in the live comments next week. You're only going to make Bitcoin stronger. The only winning move is to play. Michael Goldstein said that, I think, a decade ago in 2013, and it's very true. The only winning move in Bitcoin is to play. Bhutan recognizes that, and the U.S. does not, or the current administration does not, which is very disconcerting as a U.S. citizen. RFK, he's out there. He seems to get it. Very nuanced takes on Bitcoin this week. It's coming out guns a-blazing.
He didn't have a nuanced take on Bitcoin. He had he has a handler that told him what to tweet out.
Yeah, it was nuanced. It was like, hey, particularly around the energy thing.
Every 4 years, there's a bunch of you guys that decide to simp over someone, and then you get rug pulled.
I'm not simping.
It's going to happen again.
I'm not simping. Just
okay.
Stating some observations that I made this week. I observed.
I mean, his first tweet was like Bitcoin, crypto, and blockchain or something.
It said crypto a lot.
Yeah. Keep your dick in your pants.
Always, dude. Always.
Anyway, he's speaking at Bitcoin 2023.
Don't bring my dick into this.
Not Marty's dick. RFK Jr.
Technically, it'll be there too. But where are we going with this banking crisis? This way, the U.S.
I don't know.
They're burning the lifeboats as this banking crisis is unfolding. So, First Republic Bank wasn't technically in receivership until last Friday. They announced it was prototypical 4:45 p.m. on a Friday announcement. First Republic Bank's in receivership. They're going to be sold over the weekend. Weekend came and went. JP Morgan purchased First Republic Bank, so the FDIC took some of their toxic assets and then issued. JP Morgan made out like bandits in this deal. They got all the deposits. And
always do.
They get something like a 20% guaranteed IRR over the next 5 years on one of the particular parts of this deal that was brokered over the weekend.
This is what we were talking about 4 months ago or so, 4 or 5 months ago, when we went back to 2008. Our good friend Jason Brett showed me the clips from IndyMac when IndyMac failed in 2008. And IndyMac was, I believe, the last bank that got taken over by the FDIC. And what happened was the US government took over the bank, and no one trusts the US government, and the panic spread even farther. They cannot, if the US government takes over a bank, everyone freaks the fuck out. So the strategy ever since then has been to essentially have the US government, taxpayer money, backstop these bailouts where they orchestrate a sale to one of the larger banks, because if JP Morgan buys you, you're like, oh, I'm good. JP Morgan's fucking great. Like, I trust them more than the government. They can both go fuck themselves. But I'm saying that's what people think. And so that has been the structure. You basically just keep doing these orchestrated sales where you consolidate the banks further and further. And that's been the playbook since 2008.
Yeah. And it's not good. And that's the other thing. Parker and I have been talking about this a lot in the Commons, which this whole idea that, oh, JP Morgan bought my bank that just went under, I feel safe now, is completely idiotic, because JP Morgan is just absorbing those bad liabilities at the end of the day. So
the government covers some of those liabilities.
Yes,
right?
But there's only
that's part of the deal.
Yeah, but there's only a certain amount of those liabilities that the government can take care of in aggregate. And as it seems to be becoming obvious now, it seems like in a systemic banking crisis. So pull up this chart. I mean, this chart's been going viral on Twitter all week, and it's visualization to
this is such a good chart,
help depict the magnitude of the bank failures that we've seen this year.
Started, freaks.
Yeah, compared to 2008. So if you're not watching, what we're looking at is a bubble chart that is trying to quantify the size of the bank failures going all the way back to 2000, I believe. And obviously in 2008, when the great financial crisis happened, it was a big blow up, but it's a bunch of small bubbles, and one big bubble being WAMU. And then you fast forward to 2023, and there's 3 large bubbles.
Washington Mutual.
Yeah. And so there's been 3 failures this year with Silicon Valley Bank, First Republic. I don't even think First Republic is on this. What's the other signature?
Yeah, they're not including Silvergate on here.
Yeah, because Silvergate technically shut its doors. It didn't fail.
Silvergate technically voluntarily closed their doors and paid people back.
Yeah, so nobody lost
their
their
bubble
deposits.
should be there too, but their bubble would be a smaller bubble, because they were like
8 billion.
They were like 15 billion or something 15. Like that.
Yeah.
Well, we know. Remember, if they had successfully given out like $8 billion worth of withdrawals before they failed. So maybe they were like 12 billion or something, but in that range, while these guys are all, 200, 100. First Republic was the largest of all of them, over 200 billion. And then the most recent one, PacWest, is like 45 billion.
Well, it looks like Western Alliance,
and this is
may beat PacWest to failure.
Dude, all the little regional guys, they're all about to get fucked.
Yeah.
There's no reason for people to stay in them, and all the banks are insolvent because of the duration mismatch, because they are holding long-term government debt. They're all insolvent. There's no reason for anyone to stay in but the real question isn't these small regional banks. The crazy thing is going to be 5 through 15, starting with US Bank. There's a big drop off after the first 4, the big 4, and then it goes to US Bank. And then there's a bunch of $500 billion banks. Truist is in there, US Bank is in there, Capital One is in there. That TD Bank is in there. That's where it gets really interesting. And I think they're all fucked too.
I definitely think I've seen headlines about Capital One over the last couple of months that they're in significant trouble. But coming back to this chart and just commentating on the narrative that we've been fed for the last few years, which is we'll never have a 2008 blow up or banking crisis again. It was very unique in terms of their exposure to mortgage-backed securities. It's not going to be like 2008. And the line that they put out there is banks are better capitalized than ever due to Dodd-Frank and Basel III and those types of reserve requirement guardrails that have been put in since 2008. But as we can see from this chart, it makes it glaringly clear that, as Matt just said, it seems like this banking crisis could be worse than 08. And this is the problem with central planning, particularly with monetary policy and banking, is you have these unforeseen externalities, negative externalities, where you think you're really fixing a problem, but you're actually making it worse. And in this case, as Matt mentioned, it's a duration mismatch. All the banks were forced to hold treasuries in their liquidity reserves, so they bought up all these longer dated treasuries. And as the Fed has raised rates rapidly, the value of those treasuries, the price trades in inverse correlation with the yields of those bonds, so the value of those bonds has gone down significantly over the last.
They're all insolvent.
Yes. They're technically, like literally, if they were forced to mark their bond portfolios to market, they would be considered insolvent.
But they all got preemptively bailed out, and First Republic still failed. Like they were given loans from the U.S. government at the original value, at the par value, not at their lost value. It'd be like if the U.S. government came to me and I wanted to buy a house, and they were like, Matt, we'll treat your Bitcoin like it's still $69,000. Like that is what they got. And First Republic still fucking failed.
Yes.
Like people forget that in 2008, Bear Stearns failed in the spring of 2008. It wasn't until the fall of 2008 where the general public started to realize how bad shit was behind the surface, underneath the surface. Before, like, there was just months of denial, and we're in that denial phase right now. Like,
Well, that's what
this
a
is
lot
not doomer shit. This is just think.
We're observing. We're
Look.
literally being descriptive of what's going on right now. And that's another thing too. A lot of people are anchoring to the 2008 example of Bear Stearns fell in the spring, and then the shit hit the fan in the fall with Lehman and everything that happened then. But I think the timeline here may be accelerated as we're seeing with these big bank failures. The situation right now is such that nobody is incentivized to keep their money at these regional banks. They're probably flooding out either to the JP Morgans of the world, money market funds, or other entities that are not regional banks, Bitcoin. And so I think this could happen much faster than people imagine. And the people in power are scared shitless. So like last Friday, Jamie Dimon said the banking system's strong and resilient. Over the weekend, Yellen said the banking system's strong and resilient. On Monday, Biden came out and said the banking system's strong and resilient. Jerome Powell, 2 hours before PacWest fell by 60% after market, said the banking system is strong and resilient. Like they're all trying to induce confidence in the markets, but anybody who knows anything about the incentives that are at play now with the cockamamie policies that have been put forth, like nobody's keeping their money at these regional banks. So I think the analogy to 2008, I think it's going to be accelerated. I don't think we're going to have like a. I don't think this.
It's
I
going
think
to
it's
be
gonna happen
bigger
much
too.
faster.
It's going to be much bigger.
Yeah.
It's a useful comparison. It's a useful frame and reference and perspective. I mean, in May 2008, the former Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson said, "I do believe that the worst is likely to be behind us." Right. So history rhymes. It's not going to be exactly the same. But the incentives, the way the incentives are set up, like, of course, they're going to be posturing publicly that everything is fine because they're scared shitless. The whole thing is a confidence game. I mean, there's a reason why there's a reason why, and the difference this time, Marty, too, and we've talked about this for many different facets of our society nowadays, is they can't control the information because it's not just corporate media anymore. Like there's so many independent voices out there, whether it's social media, whether it's newsletters, blogs, videos, podcasts. There's so much independent voice out there that they can't control the fucking narrative. Like in 2008, most people to this day do not realize how many little bubbles are on this fucking chart, how many banks failed in 2008. That was by design because it was in no one's best interest, incentive-wise, for corporate media to report on this shit. Because if faith in institutions are failing, it's bad for every institution, regardless of your industry. It's not like if the banking system is failing, like, well, do I trust corporate media? Like, so all the institutions are all intertwined. They're all paying each other. They're all fucking in bed with each other. Like,
It's bad.
I know it's a meme, but this time is different.
I agree. and I don't think this is like a peak clown world call. I do think this time is different. I do think this is the end game.
We're not calling peak. We're saying peak is coming.
Yeah. But no, because you go back, and I wrote about this in the newsletter last night, like couple in what you just mentioned with social media and them not having control of the communications medium with the fact that, yes, 2008, 2009, it was 15, 14 years ago. Now at this point, it seems like a long time ago, but those scars are still a bit raw. Like people like you and I were in our early 30s. We remember it quite vividly. And I do think there's many people like us out there, millennials particularly, maybe not Gen Z to the same extent, but a lot of us.
Even Logan remembers it.
Logan, do you remember it? He's nodding his head yes. But that's another thing. Like, people are going to see what's going on now. They're like, oh shit, the banks are failing again. Like, we just did something extraordinary over the last 15 years after 2008, printed all this money, did all this QE, injected trillions into the banking system, and it didn't work. Why would the same thing work this time around? So I think there is that social aspect to it. And then you couple that with, which is the next topic, which we'll talk about, is like how much debt has been accumulated over that 15 years, and the fact that it's getting harder and harder to pay, if not, it's probably mathematically impossible to pay off. That's really becoming internalized with individuals across the country. And like, we're less than 30 days away from hitting the debt ceiling. We're going to have to raise that ceiling again. There's questions.
Well, they're going to raise it. They always raise it.
Yeah. There's questions. People think,
well, I mean, they should mint the coin. They should just mint the fucking coin.
So two different banking crises separate from this debt crisis, and we need to break each down separately.
Before we move from the banking crisis, I just want to say everyone knows that Jim Cramer's predictions are basically the same as my mempool predictions, and that there's an inverse Cramer. Whatever he says, usually the opposite happens. And he specifically said last month, or 2 months ago, he said, JP Morgan is a fortress. And I just wanted to immortalize on the podcast my Twitter response to him, which was, JP is a blanket fort and Bitcoin is a fortress. Okay, now we can move on.
The blanket fort. Banking crisis still going on right now. PacWest and Western Alliance seem to be on the ropes. Financial Times wrote an article about Western Alliance saying they were shopping around for buyers. Western Alliance came out earlier today and completely denied that and said they're going to pursue legal actions against the Financial Times.
They have to deny it.
Yeah. And so they're both down like 80% this week. It seems like those are the next two to fall. There will be
that size is all fucked, Marty. They're all fucked. And
to put this in the context, like, we had that bubble chart up, but this year alone, WAMU's the biggest bank failure in U.S. history. If PacWest goes under, that will mean in the last 2 months alone, we had 4 of the top 5 bank failures, 2, 3, 4, 5 in Silicon Valley Bank, First Republic, Signature, and
that whole chart's going to be rewritten.
Yeah.
PacWest is going to be so far from 5 by the time this all settles.
Yeah.
I'll make that bet with you. PacWest won't even be top 10.
I agree with you, so I'm not going to take the other side of that bet.
Okay.
But
damn it.
Yeah, the banking crisis is happening. Be aware. Again, we're not trying to be doomers. We're trying to be descriptive of what's playing out. The mainstream media and the politicians and the Federal Reserve is trying to make you think everything is rosy and resilient and strong. As Giorgio said in the comments, strong and resilient is the new safe and effective. So keep that in mind moving forward. Be aware. Not trying to scare anybody. We want you to be up to speed with what's going on from our view.
Be scared. Be frightened.
No, don't say that. Don't say that.
You should be a little bit scared.
No, don't be scared. We're gonna get through this, Freaks. We're gonna win.
Responsibly scared.
We're gonna win.
You should be like, okay. Well, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Stay humble, stack sats.
Okay, that's all you have to say.
A little bit of fear. A little bit of fear is healthy.
Not too much fear though. Like, a lot of fear in 2020
Nobody knows what
is not
happens
healthy.
next.
No,
we're speculating, and the guys that are lying to you on fucking corporate media, they have no fucking idea. Like, literally nobody has any idea how this plays out. So there should be a little bit of fear. It's like you're doing a bungee jump off of a bridge, but you don't know how old the rope is. You don't know who tied it. You don't know what the connections are to the bridge. Like all that shit's going on. There should be a little bit of healthy dose of fear there.
Yeah. I mean, I was up late last night. I'm not fearful. I'm just worried for my family. So I had to text my sister-in-law and say,
Yeah,
because I'm like,
semantics.
I was sister-in-law's
Marty's
in
not
Bitcoin.
fearful. He's just worried.
My in-laws, my wife's parents are not in Bitcoin yet, and I had to text my sister-in-law and be like, hey, you got to tell your parents to get in. They're not going to listen to me. Like, I had one of those moments last night where I was like, oh shit, I need to convince my family to 8-bin. And if any other of my family members are listening to 8-bin, irresponsibly, go irresponsibly long. That's
Marty's telling you, be scared. No, responsibly long.
Irresponsibly long. Join me. No, I'm kidding. All right, that's a banking crisis. It's happening. Be aware. Be aware, freaks. I'm sure you are aware. But you're not going to hear this from the traditional mainstream media where the politicians or bankers out there. Separate problem, debt ceiling. Going to hit it within 30 days. That timeline got moved up because the tax receipts that the Treasury has received for 2022 tax season has come in, I believe, 32 or 33% below what they were estimating in the beginning of the year. So tax revenues for the government have fallen, which means that they have less time to pay back the debt. They're going to hit the debt ceiling quicker. And so that's where mint the coin comes in. A lot of people are putting the coin conversation back out there.
This is our moment. Let's mint the coin.
Mint the coin. I had a thread about this in January. That was the last time mint the coin was in the news. But I really do hope they mint the coin. Because it will go down in history as one of the dumbest things in.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible for anyone who's holding dollars.
Well, it's not even that. It's just like it's horrible for anybody who likes to consider themselves a logical thinking human with sense and wherewithal. Like, so the idea behind mint the coin, there's some statute within the Constitution or somewhere in U.S. law where they do have the ability.
The Treasury is allowed to do it.
Yeah, the Treasury has the ability to point at a platinum coin and give it a value of.
The Treasury has the right to mint currency.
Yes.
So they can mint a coin and call it a $1 trillion coin. They could call it a $32 trillion coin if they want, and we'd have no debt.
Yes.
Like that's our privilege as Americans, that all of our debt is denominated in our own shitcoin. So they could literally just flip a switch and cause hyperinflation and mint a coin and not have to deal with any of this. All of our debts would be wiped out.
I said we go for it.
We were talking about this all the way back in college. Like this has been going on for years, the mint the coin idea. And obviously like it ignites my accelerationist side, but I'm pro mint the coin. I'm pro mint the coin because I'm all in Bitcoin. If I wasn't in Bitcoin, I wouldn't be pro mint the coin. I'd be like, why are you fucking me over completely? But you, if you're listening to this, have the option to switch to Bitcoin. And if you switch to Bitcoin and they mint the coin, you're good. So they should just mint the coin, stack some sats with it, call it a day.
I agree. Logan, pull up the tweet. I just want to know on the record that I'm pro mint the coin too. Back in January, like honestly, like it would be the most poetic.
I like how we can see Logan's icon here too.
It would honestly. I hope they mint the coin because it would be a nice bow tie on the end of the fiat era. It would be the most poetic ending. Like it got so insane that we pointed at a coin and said it's worth $32 trillion, likely going to be $1 trillion if they do it.
But
and they said it was worth something.
There was a good. Marty, I agree. You're pro mint the coin as well. I'm glad we got that solidified. I think I was pro mint the coin before. This is not a contest, but I think I was pro mint the coin before Bitcoin. I ever fucking even found Bitcoin, just because it's so fucking ridiculous that it just exposes. It's just like a behind the curtains thing, you know. And one of the interesting things is one interesting thought process I saw on Twitter, which just really it ignites how stupid the whole fucking fiat system is that if someone stole the $1 trillion coin, they could not sell it for $1 trillion. It would be worthless.
Be worth
it's
the platinum.
Only worth something if the Treasury keeps it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be like $200 or something, $400 worth of fucking metal.
It's insane. It's insane. But
Mint the coin.
mint the coin's back on the table.
Burn the Bitcoin. Mint the $1 trillion coin.
Well, mint the coin's probably on the table for two reasons. Obviously, number one, the debt ceiling. They want to increase that, so minting the coin will allow them to do that by $1 trillion. And then another thing got somewhat lost in the bank scares yesterday with PacWest and Western Alliance was that the Treasury came out and announced they're going to do their first Treasury buyback offering starting next year. And so this is a signal. So next year there's a big block of U.S. Treasuries that are set to roll over, and with interest rates where they are, it makes Treasuries less appealing. And so the question in the Treasury's mind is like, all right, how do we deal with this? So they're bringing back a buyback program. They haven't done it since 2000 around Y2K when people were freaking out about that and the dot-com blow up. And so the Treasury recognizes that there's not going to be a lot of demand for Treasuries when they all roll over next year. And so they literally have to Japanify themselves and be the buyer to step into that market, which is not good. And obviously a trend we've been talking about for many months, even years on this show is that foreign countries have stopped purchasing Treasuries and have even started to sell them off. And so the demand for the U.S. debt is waning significantly. And this buyback program is evidence of that. It's not a good sign when the Treasury is, all right, when these roll over next year, we'll step in and buy a bunch of them from you if you don't want them. There's another sign that we're in the end game.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't fucking lend them money.
Neither would I. I don't like giving them money for taxes. They just blow it. It's not fun.
Fucking scam.
Really is. What else do we have with that as well? Yeah, I mean, another thing we haven't even mentioned it yet. I think Jerome Powell yesterday, when he was saying the banks are strong and resilient, he raised hikes 25 bips again. So that was like literally.
That's
probably
0.25%.
Yeah. So now the target's, I think the target's 5.25 to 5. No, it's 5 to 5.25 percent is the target.
What did you see? What Biden? So, I mean, Elon can go fuck himself. The blue check thing bothers me. I think it's broken incentives. I think people should be able to pay for Twitter, but you shouldn't have this dark incentive where you have to pay with credit card and you have to link your phone number and they're blocking burner phone numbers and basically like you exchange privacy for reach because it's true out there. I know Marty doesn't understand it because he lives in his blue check circles. But us non-blue checks, like we have significantly worse Twitter experience as a result of not wanting to give up our privacy when we use Twitter. And obviously my privacy is fucking gone because you see my face, but it's a principle thing. But anyway, so Elon can go fuck himself for that. And I'm going to have to do that preface every time I give him any kind of credit. But the whole community notes thing where like Biden was like,
the U.S. has always paid its bills.
The fact checks are done by like groups or people that like the president got fact checked on us always paying our bills. That was great.
Not only that, for that particular tweet, they cited a Mises article too, going into the history of U.S. defaulting on its debt. I think the U.S.
There's a great fact check.
I think the U.S. has defaulted 3 times or something like that.
I don't know. You could check the fact check. It was good.
Here, let's pull this up. From the Mises Institute, the Biden administration keeps lying about U.S. government defaults.
The fact check was just fucking fantastic to see.
You can see the fact check lower on this article. This is a lie whether Yellen says it or Biden says it. Here at Mises.org, we published several articles on this topic. Here are 2 of them. A short history of U.S. credit defaults. Yes, the U.S. government has defaulted before. I believe it's 3 times. The U.S. government in the early years of the new federal government, and then again during the U.S. Civil War when the government refused to make good on its promise to repay notes. Further defaults followed, with the largest being in 1934 with the default on Liberty bonds. The U.S. has explicitly promised to pay back its debts in gold. It refused to do so. So yeah, no, 4 or 5 times. Yeah, Nixon ripping us off the gold standard was a form of a default, if you will.
Yeah, and then like ever since then, like we pay our debts in our own shitcoin that we just keep inflating. So like that's a self default.
Yeah. And fault via debasement. It's frothy out there, freaks. Like we said earlier, the people in charge are freaking out. If you look at their body language, if you look at what they're saying, how much effort they're putting out there to try to imbue a sense of confidence in the markets, it's they're trying very hard, and it doesn't seem to be working very well. And we had another rate hike this year, so it's only going to exacerbate the problem in the banking system, where the value of people's assets is going to go down, especially if they're holding treasuries. So, if anything, Powell just accelerated this banking crisis with that rate hike. And that's the other thing too. Like,
He's been doing it this whole fucking time.
0.25% of a rate hike, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it has compounding effects. Like it makes a material impact when you have hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars of these assets. 25 bips is a lot to eat into that. What do we got next on the list?
Mint the coin.
We're only three. We're four. We're 4 bullets in. We've got.
Well, I put a lot of software updates. You can just.
We'll blow through those.
It's been. And I have First Republic Bank fails. We already did that one.
Yeah.
I thought this one was important to highlight because
props where props are due.
Venmo.
Props where props are due.
Yeah, but I was wrong here. I said Venmo was never going to allow self-custody withdrawals and payments outside of their platform with Bitcoin, and they're doing it. I think a lot of credit actually has to be given to Cash App and the team at Block for basically forcing everyone's hand, because Robinhood's doing the same thing. I also didn't think Robinhood was ever going to do it, but it's a competitive advantage otherwise. Like if they don't offer it, they get left behind and users will switch platforms. So as a result, Venmo is doing it. They deserve some props for it. I mean, obviously it's completely ridiculous if you're not able to withdraw, but I expected them to be completely ridiculous, and they have proved me wrong. And I will say one cool thing, obviously KYC, regulated, custodial, all your funds could get taken at will. No privacy. One cool thing is, as all these platforms do this, for the first time ever, you can actually easily transfer between the different platforms. So a Venmo user was never able to send to a Cash App user because they were on 2 different networks. But now that they both support Bitcoin withdrawals and deposits, they're able to piggyback off that interoperable network of Bitcoin. They don't have to have any legal agreements. They don't have to sign any contracts, but a user on Venmo will be able to send to a user on Cash App, will be able to send to a user on Robinhood. Pretty cool.
Can you send over Lightning?
No, definitely not. But
not yet.
But I will say that Cash App is pushing them on that as well, right? Because Cash App offers Lightning, and I expect like Venmo and Robinhood and these other, really inept players in the market like Coinbase, like they're not going to implement Lightning themselves. They're probably going to have a company that comes in like a Strike or a Lightspark that provides that service for them. Oh, and by the way, while I bring up Lightspark, I fucked up. It's not a custodial service. It's like minimum viable self-custody. Technically, it's self-custody, and I was wrong about that. It still requires trust. The trust is minimized to the point where like maybe regulators will turn a blind eye and they can say it's not custodial, but it's not custodial. It's quote unquote not custodial.
There you have it, freaks. A correction on RHR. We will aim to correct whenever we were wrong. Matt was wrong about mempools.
Yeah, I meant to do that last week. It's been 2 weeks. But
yeah, you're going to have to make a correction about mempools at some point between now and Christmas Eve. So prepare for that.
I'm sure we're going to talk about it many times.
Yeah.
They'll probably clear on Thanksgiving Day.
That would be great. Next on the list, Balaji Srinivasan obviously had the big $1 million bet a couple months ago. Bitcoin will run to $1 million in 3 months. The price is nowhere near $1 million right now, currently trading at 28,000 some odd dollars.
Like 40 days ago.
Yeah.
He said 90 days and it was like 30 days ago. He capitulated.
He just said, hey, I recognize it's probably not going to hit $1 million. I'm going to pay up. And he actually paid up more than $1 million. He did $1.5 million in donations.
He negotiated a reduced payout to the guy he bet. So he only paid the guy he bet $500K to settle it and capitulate now. And then he gave an additional $1 million in donations. Half of that is to Bitcoin developers. And then half of that is to give Bitcoin, which is like going to like poverty and stuff, but it's still a donation.
Yeah. And in Balaji's defense, I think we said this around the bet. I don't think anybody, I think if you were able to read through what he was saying, I don't think he earnestly thought Bitcoin was going to hit $1 million. He just wanted to get the signal out there that you should be getting away from the banking system into Bitcoin. And that video that Logan just sped by, we're not going to watch it because it's like 6 minutes long. But
he said he burned $1 million to tell you that
they're printing trillions. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will say that for this prophecy to come true, we needed Balaji to capitulate. So 60 days, SAT cent parity in 60 days, still
50
on
days.
the table.
50 days.
Now it's more on the table than ever because it capitulated. This is what the universe needed for the prophecy to come true.
Yeah. With that being said, I highly recommend you freaks go check out that video because it is. I mean, you can look at it as a $1.5 million marketing campaign for Bitcoin. Definitely got the conversation going all throughout the internet. I think it was a good bang for your buck spend, if you ask me. As we would argue or agree, I would imagine it's an important message to get out there because the banks are failing. And as we discussed for the first hour of this show, they're failing quickly. I don't think many people realize it. We're not trying to be doomers. Again, we're trying to be descriptive of what's going on. I don't think people understand. Most people, you freaks if you're here, do understand. But the gravity of the situation is much larger than the mainstream would want you to believe, or that the overwhelming populace actually is grasping right now.
No, yeah. I mean, it was pretty obvious from very early on. I mean, Balaji's not an idiot either. Like, he didn't actually believe that, 90 days Bitcoin was going to hit $1 million. And he was also trapped in the bet, which is what happens to me a lot, right?
Yes.
Which he was grandstanding. He was like all caps, and someone was like, "Oh, well, if you're serious, like bet me $1 million." And he was like, "Done," And then you got trapped. Like, that's what happens to me all the time with my bets, including the mempool bets over and over again. But they're at much lower levels. But yeah, I mean, I think it's up only after Balaji capitulation, right? Like, this is he capitulated early. Like, you gotta. I was the day before conference day. I said 200K still in play. Like, you gotta go with it. You don't capitulate. You don't capitulate 40 days into your 90-day bet. That's just me.
To each their own, To each their own. So bet has been paid out. What if it does hit $1 million? Does that guy have to give him up 500 grand back?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's like the best timeline now. Now it's actually in play. It was never in play before. Now it's in play. Because the universe likes shit like this. Let's fucking go.
What would you do if Bitcoin hit $1 million in 50 days?
No more RHR. We'd have one last RHR. Then I'm just going to raise goats.
Just goats?
I mean, goats and other things. It's like Noster, goats and other stuff. But like, I have my eyes on goats.
Could you imagine this show post $1 million Bitcoin though? We could do up the production. It would be awesome.
Yeah, I would still do it. It would just be like Matt live from the pasture with the goats. There'd be like multiple cameramen, like there'd be goats and shit.
I don't know if I'd agree to that.
Yeah, goats and other stuff.
Goats and other stuff. All right. Balaji paid out his bet. I'm trying to think of what else. Bitcoin relay before we get into software updates.
I'm fine with like a humble 250K, something like that. Like, he capitulated while we were flat. He didn't even like wait for like any kind of run up. Like, only what, 3 banks failed. Like he didn't even wait for like 7 to 8 banks to fail. It's just disappointing capitulation.
Well, I think the price could run up rather quickly. Gold has been
especially now that he capitulated.
Gold's been a leading indicator for like the last year. That broke all-time highs temporarily yesterday. I'm not sure what it was doing today. If we hit the debt ceiling in 30 days and they don't figure it out, likelihood is they do. They typically
Gold is a shit coin.
Capitulate. I know, but regardless, it has been a leading indicator. If we don't solve the debt ceiling thing and actually the government's forced to shut down, banking crisis is still going on. Could you imagine that shitstorm?
If they mint the coin, what if they mint the coin?
Yeah, so it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like Bitcoin's going to pump no matter what.
They shut it down. How many years ago was it when they shut it down for like a week?
I think they shut it down.
Wait, isn't that when Bill Clinton got head from Monica Lewinsky? Was when they shut down the government over the debt ceiling?
No, it happened in Obama's administration, I'm pretty sure. Somebody fact check us.
Wasn't that the debt ceiling too, when he did not have sexual relations with that woman?
When has the U.S. hit the debt ceiling?
I think we were like shut down for a week, and it was interns only, and Monica was an intern.
January.
I think it's happened.
Oh, God. I'm going to a New York Times article. When was the debt limit reached?
You can always count on Big to give us non-factual information in the comments.
What do you say?
They shut down the government because all the congressmen wanted head from Monica too.
Ew. Fake. You're disgusting.
Vake is a doctor. You have to trust what he says.
1990. Oh shit.
Yeah, that was Clinton.
No, that was Bush 1, shut down for 3 days. Clinton is shut down twice, in 95 and later in 96. It shut down for 5 days in 95 and then 21 days into 96. That was right. And then Obama, it shut down for 16 days in 2013. So it's happened 4 times in the last 33 years.
But they haven't mint the coin yet. They should mint the coin.
You got to try everything, right? I mean, they don't QE, they don't twist, they don't interest rate policy. I think it's only fitting that you got to go into the next. That is literally the last tool in their belt, is minting the coin.
Was that a sexual innuendo?
No. Where's your mind? You got to say, come on. Stop watching porn, freaks. It takes your mind to these weird places. Okay.
Oh, what an accusation. Okay. There's only one host on this show that admitted he had a porn problem, and it wasn't me.
It was years ago. It's an everyday battle, Matt. Thank you for reinforcing my will to go on.
Yeah, I agree with Tom Barry. Bill Clinton took my mind there.
Did Bill smoke the cigar after where he put it? Would not be shocked. These people are sick. They do demented things. Speaking of demented things, I recorded with Whitney Webb earlier today. That episode drops tomorrow, and we dive all into the weird things these people are doing. And when you talk about the banking crisis too, really dove into her dissection of Jamie Dimon and the series she's been writing on him, and it really brought to light some interesting chain of events. Jamie was with Citi before they combined with Travels Group, and if you freaks remember, Citi and Travel Group, they wanted to merge, but the Glass-Steagall Act did not allow them because Glass-Steagall Act put a wall between commercial banks and insurance companies. And then the Clinton administration, Larry Summers, passed the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which tore down that wall, let Citigroup and Travelers Group, or Citi and Travelers Group, form to create Citigroup, and that incited the mortgage-backed security crisis, the build-up to the crisis that eventually hit the fan in 2008. Interestingly enough, Jamie got kicked out of there and was basically set on a path to go to JP Morgan, to take over JP Morgan. And Jeffrey Epstein was actually responsible for the Lehman Brothers crash, which JP Morgan wound up acquiring. So interesting theory discussed with Whitney today, which is that there's been a long con going on to consolidate the banking system up into banks like JP Morgan. So check it out.
I mean, the banks have definitely been consolidating.
Yeah, there's inarguable.
For years, for decades.
There's actually a chart. Let me pull it up. Somebody responded to me with the chart. I think it was disputing my overall comment, but the chart's good, so we'll pull it up. And I'm not afraid of a little confrontation.
That Citi Travelers merger is when Citi got the new logo.
Yeah.
I went down that rabbit hole, like the Citi logo rabbit hole. It was
I've never fallen down that
hole, but
what's that rabbit hole? I've never fallen down the logo. I've never fallen down it.
The red thing on the top is the Travelers umbrella. You know, like Travelers Insurance had the umbrella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't find this chart. I'm sorry, freaks.
All the freaks know that all the banks have been consolidating for years.
This chart is pretty. It's pretty damning, though. Let's see if I can find this. Give me 5 more seconds.
Yeah, I mean, Carlos makes a good point. Ride or die free Carlos, who's still with us, even though he said his schedule wasn't great for our afternoon reps. It's all the major industries. Like he said, telecoms are consolidating too. Usually where regulation is heavy, you see the most consolidation. We see it in airlines. You see major consolidation wherever there's this large, burdensome regulation. I mean, on the Bitcoin microcosm, you see it in the exchanges because they're so heavily regulated and they have their regulatory moats and requires millions of dollars to launch a competitor.
This is just going to annoy me, so I got to find this goddamn chart. Yeah, it only goes back to...
Okay, should I just go to the next topic while you keep looking?
I found it. I found
Balaji capitulates. Oh, LND. Guys, LND v 0.16.2 is out. They also released 0.16.1. This is an important update. I've been told this is an important update. You need to update your notes. I haven't been told why it's important. Oh, I will say, especially if you updated to 0.16.1, that could be really bad. So definitely upgrade. But it's supposedly an important update. And it's above my pay grade, and no one trusted me with the information of why it was important. But if you're running an LND node, go update your LND nodes.
Yeah, just quickly, chart on the screen is number of commercial banks in the U.S. since 1950, going to 2018. So you can take 3 off of that chart, go a bit lower. But yeah, consolidation has been happening pretty consistently over the last 40 years at least. Back to the LND update.
Like 13,400. It's most people are on audio. It's 13,400 down to what was it? 4,500.
Yeah, 4,500. So cutting a third. 33% of the banks that existed in the 80s, which happened after the 70s. It was after we went off the gold standard. Very interesting thing. Back to LND version 0.16.2 beta. This is primarily a hot fix release to fix some performance regressions.
No, it's not though.
Okay.
The important part isn't in the release.
Okay. So we will get a disclosure 6 months from now, and we'll find out about it then.
Just update. I know that's not great. Or just close your channels and put it in cold storage. I'm not telling you to blindly update. The update could be the attack. If we get rugged, we get rugged together.
Okay. Update LND. Before we got into software updates, I did want to read, but this is a very important one, so it's nice to isolate. Let's read the top 4 Boostagrams from last week.
Sorry, DJ Seafair. I don't know why to update. I just know it's important. I've been told it's important. Multiple people have told me it's important.
I'm going to go find out in the comments after this. Rabbit hole recap 250. Almost at 1,000. Quarter of the way there. Bank runs continue. Could have named it that this week as well, but we decided to go optimistic.
Next week we'll name it that.
At Bitcoin Focus with a Q, FOQUS, 111 sats. Ones across the board, palindrome boost. Modesto, California, and Central Valley Bitcoiners. We've started a new Bitcoin meetup, and our next meetup is Sunday, May 28th at 4 p.m. at Commonwealth in Modesto. Source Seagulls can check the meetup app to verify time and date and chat with organizers. See, this is a good meetup boost right here. You give them 3 weeks, at least. More than 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks. May 28th, Modesto, California, at the Commonwealth. At Commonwealth, I'm assuming that's an establishment in Modesto. At Bitcoin Focus, thank you for starting the meetup and for the boost. Appreciate your contribution to the show. At Auburn_Citadel, 100,000 sats. I don't know. Just stay humble and stack sats. Thank you, Auburn Citadel.
Great advice.
Eric99 coming in hot this week after getting called out for dropping out of the top 4 last week. Stay humble, stack sats. At Tatanka1971 lets you boost 1 sat over this one. ... At Tatanka1971.
Let's fucking go.
Did not do that.
Great advice.
Last but not least, 4th largest boost from RIP 250. At Mav21, 45,000 sats. Bitcoin Magazine can GFY. Go fuck yourself. That wasn't nice. It is a boost. I had to read
Appreciate the support, freak.
Yeah. We're going to be there. I'm excited. Rabbit Hole Recap, open source stage. Whitney Webb's going to be there. RFK is going to be there.
We're going to close out the first day. Yeah, look, I will say, like, I obviously have publicly disagreed strongly on their stance for a lot of things. So.
We're talking about what are people pissed off with Bitcoin Magazine for right now? Ordinals, NFTs.
Yeah, I mean, mostly ordinals.
You just have to accept them, freaks.
There's been historically a lot of questionable decisions of people that have gone on stage.
But we won't. Yeah. I know you've been working hard. You've come a long way from having Mashinsky on stage in 2019.
That pissed me off so much.
Oh, we got our hottest episodes this week from Fountain Tweet 21 seconds ago. Thank you, freaks. The top 4 boosts and every boost to come after that made Rabbit Hole Recap number 250. Bank runs continue. The number 1 show on Fountain last week. So thank you, freaks. Appreciate that.
Wait, I definitely appreciate the freaks boosting us and supporting us through podcasting 2.0. It is special when we see the charts. Yeah. It keeps me coming week in and week out. It keeps me out of the goat pasture.
Is that a dick joke?
No, we were literally talking about
keeps me coming
week
in and week out. Coming back, you got to add some context to that.
Get your mind out of the gutter, Marty.
Bill Clinton took me there. Okay, it's all Bill's fault.
But what was that? Was that a new boost that came in?
No, that was Fountain just tweeted.
Yeah.
And now you have freaks going to Twitter to saying that we're telling people to urgently upgrade to LND version 0.16.2.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Consider it. You should operate on Lightning. Be aware, freaks. If you're running Lightning, you should just assume that all your funds could just be rugged at any moment.
Yes.
It hasn't happened yet.
Speaking of Lightning Terminal version 0.9.2 alpha has been released. I don't know if you have this on the list too, but it seems like they have an implementation with Voltage too. Lightning Terminal has been officially incorporated into Voltage's product suite. So if you're using Voltage, you get access to the terminal, which includes their channel liquidity management, their swap product, I'm blanking on the names, Lightning Pool, and a couple other products. Version, I'm not reading show notes because if I start with this one, we'll be here for 2 hours. Blixt wallet version 0.6.7 has been released, and let's give me a round of applause because that's the first time I pronounced it the first time. First try on the show. Sphinx Relay version 2.3.1 has been released. Parmanode version 2.3.4 has been released. Alby launches Nostr Wallet Connect. Let's read. In short, Nostr Wallet Connect allows users to import their existing Bitcoin Lightning wallets into apps. Developers can offer one-click or even automated Bitcoin payments with just a few lines of code. So this is different than putting your LN address in your Nostr profile. It's for different types of clients, I assume.
Yeah, this just makes it really easy for instead of every Nostr client to have a built-in wallet, they can just use this standard, and they don't have to actually build their own Bitcoin wallet into the client.
Hell yeah. Shout out to Alby. Feni version 0.1.8 Cashew Wallet and Mint implementation in Golang has been released. Agoradesk app version 1.1.1 has been released. MyNode version 0.3.16 has been released. Zeus version 0.7.5 has been released. Nothing too crazy there. Just checking the Zeus updates because I'm a Zeus user. I want to see what they updated. Nayuda wallet version 0.1.7 has been released. What is Nayuda wallet?
It's a Lightning wallet on mobile.
Hell yeah.
I think it's Android only right now.
Support for invoices that don't show amounts. Stack Duo version 1.0.5 has been released. Bisq version 1.9.10 has been released. Munster. This is really cool. Musig plus Nostr. Cool app.
This is awesome.
That allows you to do multi-sig coordination over Nostr.
Really fucking cool.
Yeah.
And because it uses Taproot and Musig, it just looks like a regular
single sig
transaction.
Yeah. This is like really interesting
cool
development over Nostr because obviously you have apps like Caravan that are Unchained, their open source tool to coordinate multi-sig. You have,
but you still with like that, you have to like send text messages between each other, whether that's through Signal or Matrix or whatever. You have to like send these PSBTs back and forth. So Nostr as an interoperable communication protocol adds all this new capabilities. Like I stand by my statement that like I don't think we can really comprehend all the different cool things that can be built with Nostr, and even larger than just Bitcoin. But even if you just isolate it to just the Bitcoin space, like the different things that Bitcoin tools can do using Nostr as a communication protocol, it's really fucking cool.
It really is. We really need to get to Parker on this. He's such a monster. Nostr curmudgeon.
We don't have to convince Parker. We're going to be, thanks to Jack Dorsey, we're going to be funding at least $5 million to Nostr projects. And he'll come around eventually.
He was not happy when he found.
You can tell Parker that he'll come around to Nostr gradually, then suddenly.
This is true. I agree. I've been trying my best here. No avail. Shout out to the Monster team, Stacy, Roger. This is really cool. I want to get them. Ron, not Roger. Armin and Sebastian. This is the type of combining open source protocols that you like to see. This is really unique and creative, and I think is an added benefit. Piggybacking on Ben Carmen's transaction broadcasting over Nostr that we talked about last week. It's like these types of applications are really cool to see bubbling up from the Nostr and Bitcoin ecosystem. Moving on, Electrum version 4.4.1 has been released. Galoy version 0.6.48 has been released. And then this is something I love to see. As you freaks know, I've been a big Payjoin advocate for years and wondering why we aren't making every spend to Coinjoin. Obviously, the need for a hot wallet makes it harder, blah, blah, blah. We've talked about this ad nauseum in the past. But Dan Gould is tracking the growth in Payjoin adoption. And if things play out like they have in the past with this type of tracking. It does create pressure for a lot of wallets to implement this. It happened with PSBT. Keeping a tracker like this, I think, lit a fire under the ass of different wallets to get onto that standard. And so Dan is doing that with Payjoin compatibility right now, and hopefully it incites a sense of urgency to implement Payjoins throughout the wallet softwares as it stands right now. For sending, the only wallets that allow that are Blue Wallet, Bitmask, PTC Pay Server, Join Market, Sparrow, and Wasabi. And for receiving, there's even less. It's only BTC Pay Server, Join Market, and a few others evaluating. So Bitcoin Core has an extension, Bitcoin Knots has an extension, and LND has an extension for Payjoin.
I put like the chart in the list because it's important. The research is interesting. But Payjoin for payments isn't going to happen. It's going to happen for like Lightning channels, opens and closes, stuff like that. The incentives just don't line up.
I would take the other side.
I will say there has been significant Payjoin adoption between like peer-to-peer payments or whatever, but like it's not going to happen on the merchant side stuff. Like it just doesn't make any sense.
Shout out to Stonewall. Is it Stonewall or Cahoots that lets you do that? It's Cahoots.
Stonewall is Stowaway. Stowaway is their Payjoin implementation.
Stowaway.
Stonewall is their Stonewall 2x is their 2-person coin join. Stonewall is their fake 2-person coin join, and Stowaway is the Payjoin.
Okay.
But like that makes more sense because it's like I'm paying you, or Finch is paying me, or I'm paying Finch, and we both want better privacy, so we like go through the trouble of doing Payjoin. Mm-hmm. But like I said in the past, like if it's a merchant and I care about sending privacy, if they're going to run a hot wallet, they're probably going to accept Lightning. I'll just pay them in Lightning.
Yeah. We'll see how that plays out. Shout out to everybody working on Payjoin, and shout out to you, Dan, for putting this tracking list together. Hopefully it incites people to do stuff. Last but not least on the list, LNMesh, who said you'd need internet to send Bitcoin offline Lightning network payments using community wireless mesh networks. From Amet Kurt, Abduladi Sahin, Ricardo Haralal Parchment, and Kamal Ekaya. This is a research paper. Nothing's been implemented, but I do think it's really cool. LNMesh, we've talked a lot about mesh networks in the past. This seems like a proposal to implement one, and what it would enable, it's specific to the Lightning Network. It would enable people to leverage a relay of Bluetooth-enabled nodes to set up channels with each other and transact over Bluetooth offline in places where the internet just isn't reliable, or if the internet ever goes down somewhere for some reason, the government just says, hey, they're talking too much, shut off the internet. It's good to have this type of transaction relay over the Lightning Network fallback option. So it's great to see research like this. Anything to add here?
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a cool project. I want to see more mesh projects and stuff like that. Alternative communication and stuff is important. We're more vulnerable on that side than people give credit.
Yeah, and I wrote about this in the newsletter a couple days ago, posted on Nostr, and somebody responded. I wrote about this and Ben Carmen's transaction broadcast, and the question came up.
We talked about that last week.
I know, but I wrote about it 2 days ago, and this discussion ensued, particularly with Ben's transaction broadcast over Nostr. It's like, we have Tor. Why does it matter? Tor is superior to what Ben built. He would admit that. He admitted to me earlier this week. But it is not a bad thing to have these fallback options, redundancy, in terms of being able to broadcast.
Yeah, you want as many options as possible.
Yeah. So similarly with LNMesh.
Tor fucking has so many issues.
Yeah, Tor's proven to be pretty unreliable. So it's good to have other options. And similarly with transaction relays, different than broadcast, it's good to have alternative networks outside the internet. So Bluetooth mesh networks to relay transactions.
I need to dive down that rabbit hole, like radio, ham radio, communications. I haven't gone further enough down that rabbit hole, and that's That's on my list. If we hit $1 million Bitcoin in 90 days, maybe I'll go down that rabbit hole quicker.
Yes.
Along with the goats, it'll be like goats and radio communication, stuff like that.
Yeah, I just want to shout out to Carlos for recognizing that I nailed all those names in that research paper. And also...
Carlos has no fucking idea.
Also that Carlos is making people aware of what you should be aware of. I2P is under attack, and I do think it has affected some Bitcoin nodes that were using I2P.
Yeah, I forgot to cover that. Yeah, there's an attack, which goes to show it's what we were saying, like many times, which is like I2P is interesting as a alternative to Tor, but also because it's not being used, it's like you don't really know. It's not used as much, so like you don't know how robust it is. Like you find these pain points after it starts getting used, because then it starts getting attacked.
Yeah, beware, freaks. But we need these options.
I also had a separate freak. Reach out to me, not in the live chat, and I just wanted to say, I was not trying to shame Monica Lewinsky. I put that squarely on Bill Clinton. He was in a position of power.
Yes, Matt. Not shaming women. She was a victim. Yeah. Another thing, not on the list, we should mention, shout out to Fedi on their raise, $17 million.
Yes, huge raise.
Yes.
Congrats.
1031 invested in the seed round of Fedi. We're extremely happy with what they're doing and what they're bringing to the world. It's a beautiful thing. Shout out to the Fedi team.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, huge congrats to Fedi. I remain extremely bullish on the Fedimint open source protocol and also the Fedi's team's implementation of the front end.
Yes.
I think people are just not I don't want to, I get accused of hyping an unreleased product, so I'll wait to hype a released product, but it's coming.
Yes, I'm very hype on it too. And I will hype it. I think it's going to change things materially in terms of what we can build.
Yeah, but I went a little bit too hypey. I went I've been very aggressive with it. Yeah. You should be more aggressive with it, Marty. Level me out a little bit.
I'm pretty bullish. Shout out to Obi, Justin, Eric, the rest of the team at Fedi. I'll pump you.
Their whole team is fucking fire. Their whole team behind the scenes is fucking fire. And I met a lot of the Fedimint open source contributors, the unsung heroes. They're amazing. The Fedimint open source project, separate of Fedi, is a vibrant developer community.
Yes.
It is impressive. And I hope to provide a lot of support through OpenSats on that side as well.
Give me a second here.
Well, with all that said, Marty, I got to wrap this. I got to get out of here. It's been a good rip.
Yes. I want to shout out Jodem from the Fedimint open source protocol.
Oh, Jodem's fucking awesome.
He was in the Commons last week, and incredible dude. It's great to meet him in person.
I met Jodem.
Yeah.
He's an inspiring story too, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's OK Jodem on Twitter.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody.
Great dude.
We're going Fedimint open source protocol. Fedi team working on their platform.
We're going to shout out Jodem. Also, huge shout out to Kitman. Fucking legend.
Shout out to the whole team. Okay. Shout out to the whole team.
Yeah.
Freaks, Matt's got to go. I've got to go too. I actually have to get home. Do some parenting. It's important. You got to be a present father.
I love you, freaks. I love you, Marty. It's always a pleasure. This was a great rip. Freaks, just a tiny bit of fear in you. Don't let the fear take over you.
Come on, man.
We
opened the episode where we're not going to be doomers.
Just a tiny bit of fear just cracks you in line. Just prepare for the worst, hope for the best, stay on Boostagrams.
You sound like a drug dealer. Just like all you need is a little hit. All you need is a little hit. You're going to get hooked on fear. They're going to be like paralyzed by it.
Burn the Bitcoin like you burn the drugs. Otherwise, you're complicit, government.
We're going to be confident. We know where we're going. We know what the lifeboat is. We know how to get out of this. We got strong communities. We're going to get out of this, freaks. It is going to be a little scary, though. Peace and love. Take care.